Hello, hello. I am experimenting with going live on Instagram today. So bear with me just a moment. I am doing my best here to try to get that to connect. And I think I just did. So we are live on Instagram and on YouTube. So something new for us. Let me go ahead and get our little intro video going here, and then we'll get rolling into unsafe imported HVAC products.
Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down tonight. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up. Tonight, we gonna light it up. Tonight, we gonna light it up. Just like the sunrise, we gonna light it up.
Hey, everybody. Special Saturday edition of our HVAC live shows that we do. Of course, we do a proper conventional show every Tuesday night that's live, where we actually take questions, live, and we do all kinds of fun things, fun segments, and so on. Let me know how the audio is sounding if you don't mind. I'm getting used to this microphone. I like it. I think it sounds good. But I'm still experimenting with, how close my mouth should be to the microphone and things like that. So, hey to everybody. Hey to Gil and Steve, a couple of our regulars. Good to see you guys. This actually popped up on my radar this week. So some of you know that I sold my HVAC company not long ago, and I am also teaching classes to other pros. I work for a distributor now, and I do teaching. And one of the classes that we are teaching is on A2L refrigerants. And pretty interesting class because, there's an array of information out there. Things are changing so fast that even after I, made all the slides and I've started teaching the class, things have changed from when I started. Like, it changes so fast and so much. I know some of you other pros can probably relate. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with all the stinking changes. And, you don't even know if what you're teaching is accurate, So one of the things that came up in our class was the refrigerant cylinders. Moving forward, they're going to have red lettering and scary things on the boxes, and they're going to have these stripes on them trying to designate them as A2L refrigerants. And they're also going to be left-hand threads. And, none of that is too crazy. But what's interesting is, we've had questions like, well, what about the recovery cylinders? So anybody that, if you're not a part of our trade and you're not aware, there's a whole nother cylinder that we're supposed to use that, they're reusable, if you will. They're not one-time use. So if you go buy a new jug of refrigerant, it is technically a one-time use jug, metal container that you're supposed to use and then dispose of. And so we have these recovery cylinders that we use multiple times. If we're going to recover refrigerant out of a system, and then we're going to instead of disposing of that cylinder, we go do a tank swap at a supplier. We get a new tank and we turn in that recovered refrigerant to be recycled and cleaned up and whatever. And so the question became, well, what about the recovery cylinders? We're talking about left-hand threads and all these markings on the new refrigerant tank and, one-time use tanks. What about the recovery cylinder? What's the whole deal with that? And I actually have sat through classes where they go over that and they talk about the red stripe and so on. But we later found out from the company that our supplier does our tanks, and it's a company called Hudson, and I think a lot of folks use them. And one of the news stories we're going to cover here goes through this company, Hudson Technologies, and they came back and said, look, we're going to be using all the same recovery cylinders that we've always used, that we're going to be still using a regular recovery cylinder with right-hand threads. You're not supposed to mix the refrigerants. You're supposed to write on the cylinder what it is, but that we're going to be using the same cylinders, which is, kind of, I don't want to say it's new, but it's different than what I'm hearing from some of the, higher ups in our industry, folks that are teaching these classes and setting the rules, folks that are tied into the EPA. And so, this whole thing opened a can of worms. One of the emails they sent out to us said, hey, there's also these recovery cylinders that are being imported into our country that are a problem, that they are not approved cylinders, that they, maybe even there's some safety issues with these recovery cylinders, and we will not use them. We will not swap them. If you recover refrigerant into one of these cylinders and you try to return it to us, then we won't use them. They're smuggled in. They're, and maybe not even illegally in this case. Some of the stories we might cover here in a little bit are illegal smuggling of HVAC products or refrigerants. But I just think it's interesting that even if these cylinders are not, smuggled in, they're being imported, normal, I guess, but they're still a problem. They're unsafe and for a number of reasons. So let me show you guys. I know when we do the vertical live videos, sometimes when I show you guys different things that maybe it's hard to see it or me, but it's more mobile friendly, and that's part of the game here until the systems that we use come up with better technology. Let me see. Let me pull this up. Bear with me. Share screen. So this is a picture of those cylinders that I was telling you guys about. And so the story, it's from thecoolingpost.com, says Hudson warns of unsafe U.S. recovery cylinders. So they're going one step further from saying that, that they're not okay, that they're not approved and maybe even inspected to make sure that they're approved by the powers that be, but they are actually unsafe. They go so far as to say that. And so this looks like cookies. Hudson warns of unsafe recovery cylinders. They put a picture up here. And so they give you some ways to look for these recovery cylinders. They have this valve outside of the collared, protection area. There's a collar on these recovery cylinders that serve as a nice handle, but they also protect the valves on top, and that this valve is positioned outside of the collar area. So if you see that there, and then it also writes that, there's no DOT markings. It's not approved to transport this refrigerant by the DOT. There's no manufacturing date, no cylinder specifications, no retest markings, no cylinder tear, or no neck ring identification. So when you do, like when you're a pro in our industry and you go get one of the proper approved ones, there's things stamped all over this collar. And so they're pointing out that these imported cylinders are not stamped. It's completely smooth right there. And then it also points out that some of these valves that are these extra valves. So when I go get one of these tanks from our supply house, it doesn't have this valve right here. It's just this guy up here. It says top angle of valve positioned outside of the collar. Exposed valve could snap if hit or turned over to recover gas. And I apologize for my voice and noises I'm making. I don't know if I've got a cold or if it's just regular allergies that I get every single spring when pollen comes out. This is the one time of the year I actually love the spring, but I probably spend more time inside with all my indoor air quality products in our heating and air system than anywhere. Because pollen, man, it'll kick my butt. My eyes will get all puffy and everything. But it says in the USA, the U.S. refrigerant supplier and reclaimer Hudson Technologies has warned of illegal and unsafe recovery cylinders entering the U.S. market. The company warns that it cannot and will not accept these cylinders, which it says are not manufactured to the U.S. Department of Transportation specifications. The cylinders, it claims, are marketed over the, I don't even know how to say, I can say Vivor, I can't say these other names, brands, but may also be sold under other branding, which is not uncommon when people, when these companies will import products into our country, and this isn't just in the HVAC industry, it's all kinds of products, right? Go on Amazon and just, search for just about any product, and you'll see the same product with a whole bunch of different American words being sold. Same product. You can look at the pictures. They're even the same sometimes, right? But then they'll put, I'll just go to mini splits, for example. You can buy these mini splits and it'll say, words like, I don't know, wilderness, words like that, American words. I'm not trying to get in trouble by mentioning too many brand names, but just these American words. And the more wholesome that word can sound, the more American, traditional American word that is sort of like the reason that Ray Kroc, who expanded the McDonald's brand, he didn't want to change the name from McDonald's because he thought it was such a wholesome name if you go watch that movie. And so anyway, they do that all the time. It's not uncommon for brands to sell the same products under different names. The cylinder sizes are 30 and 50-pound cylinders, but are smaller than DOT compliant 30 and 50-pound cylinders. And I will say, as someone, I don't think I've laid hands on too many of these cylinders, but I do think I have. In fact, one of those brands, I'm not going to mention which one, sent me a bunch of free stuff one time because they saw our YouTube channel. And so that said, the cylinders, like if I go do a recovery switch, if I go get a recovery cylinder at a actual approved, HVAC supplier, and I get one of these DOT approved cylinders, there's some weight there. There's some, I don't want to say quality, but there's some beefiness to the metal of that tank. You know what I'm saying? Like if you go buy a jug of refrigerant, one-time use cylinder, and you use all the refrigerant, what's left over is a cylinder that only, really only weighs about 5 pounds. But these recovery cylinders, if they are completely empty, are still pretty heavy. I want to say, I don't know the actual weight. Maybe one of our pros in here knows the actual weight, but I want to say they're a good, 3 to 4 times heavier than a regular old one-time use empty cylinder, Let's see. Let me go back to our chat here for just a second. Steve says Ty has done some videos on these cylinders. Oh, has he? Okay. Man, I got to tell you, I'm glad you said that, Steve. I have been watching other videos for years, other channels, other videos. In fact, I learn a ton, right? Just like I'm sure a lot of you do. But I don't even know the guy, and I just love Ty's videos. He's a smart guy, but he's not like an arrogantly smart guy, right? I mean, I might even be guilty of that sometimes, coming off as arrogant. And a lot of guys do. But Ty comes off as lovable. Like, you just love the guy. He's just, I don't know. I just, for those of you that don't know, we're talking about Ty Brannaman. He hosts the Love to HVAC channel. And he's always happy. That's totally true. He makes you feel good when you watch his stuff, and you always learn something. He's a plethora of information. And someday I hope to get his autograph. Ty, shout out to you. I've chatted with him in some of the chats, right? So if I'm watching a video or something like that, I've actually chatted back and forth with him, which is kind of cool. But he actually works for the ESCO Institute now. So I think those guys really lucked out to pick him up. How are contractors getting these unsafe units? I don't know that it's the contractors always, Ryan, but it is. But you can buy these things online, right? I mean, if you just go to, bear with me here. If you just go to, let me see if I can find them on Amazon. Recovery tank HVAC. That's what I just searched. All right. And then let me show you guys what I'm seeing here. So I don't see one. Well, there's one right there. Okay. So I'm not trying to pick on these folks, but this is exactly what they're talking about. So you see that extra little valve there. And this definitely looks like, see how the collar is lower than the valve? The collar is lower than the handles on these valves. And so if you flip that cylinder, that's a problem, right? You're putting stress, if nothing else, on the handle, but maybe on the valve itself. And then of course there's no protection on this, it says brass blow off valve. But ultimately, you don't see the markings on the side of the collar there. And, this is what they're talking about right here. So when you buy this, there's that brand that they were pointing out. I'm not going to sit here and say you shouldn't buy these and you shouldn't, whatever, buy it and use it. Problem here is the companies that we take cylinders to and swap them out are saying they will not use these. They're not approved. The DOT has not approved them, and they're unsafe to use for different reasons. And so this is exactly what they're talking about. So I found this one on Amazon, and so whether it's contractors or DIY folks or homeowners or whoever that are buying these, Hudson is saying they will not exchange those tanks, that they're being imported and they're not jumping through the same hoops, and that they're not going to use them. I think that that's common with a lot of products out there, right? If you go buy if you go buy a product off at a retail store, and then you go buy something online, it's possible that what you're buying is being imported into the country and maybe doesn't meet the same specs or whatever. Sometimes you don't even know what you're actually buying. I remember a guy talking years ago about being careful about buying some of your vitamins from different websites because you actually don't know what you're getting at the end of the day. And they've actually tested vitamins bought online from different websites that we've all heard of, and how they're not what they claim to be. He sent me a sticker recently. What was the sticker of? I gotta know. I really gotta know. Do tell. Dejected says, would love to stay, but I have a customer to get to in 10 minutes. I hope you have a good stream. Thanks, pal. Good luck with your service call on a Saturday. So back to our, let's see. Let me go back to our slide here from our story. To identify the cylinders, Hudson Technology says the DOT markings are missing from the steel collar, and there is no date of manufacture or no serial number. The valve is also positioned outside of the protective collar, and the protective collar is also shorter than the vapor and liquid valves. So aside from, here's one thing I wonder, if they were to not have that third valve, that one located outside the collar, and they were to fix this collar, make it taller so it does protect everything better, but still does not have the date of manufacturer and no serial number. I would guess that Hudson Technologies and others would still have problems with those tanks because there's no tracking, there's no serial number, and so on. But I wonder if they could pass for being a knockoff. Just like my wife, always talks about these fake bags. They'll say that they're, I don't know, Louis Vuitton, but they're actually not, that they're fake. So but some people get away with it, right? Or like these sneakers. You see these YouTube channels where they have these sneakers that are fake, and you've got to look for certain things on the shoes to make sure they're real. I mean, I've seen guys literally smell them. Does it have the right smell? you know, to see if it's an actual real shoe made by, Nike or Jordan or whoever, right? And so, anyway, point being, maybe if these companies get better at making these fake tanks, what does that look like? Are they going to start looking more like the tanks that Hudson has a problem with? So anyway, I think it's an interesting topic as far as that goes, because his logo. Okay. Sweet, man. Now I want a sticker. I just got a whole bunch of Daikin and Goodman stickers from the new place I'm working at. I thought I had some in here, but I guess I don't. So anyway, let's go to our next story. I started looking up all these different stories, right, of smuggled HVAC or imported HVAC products, and some of the different stories that have come out. Some of these are crazy, man. Some of these stories are just absolutely nuts. Let me share this one. This one is a story about a guy who was smuggling refrigerant. It comes from the ocregister.com. And the story is in California. It says a San Diego man charged with smuggling greenhouse gases from Mexico. And let's see. I was hoping that it would say what the actual gas is. But that does raise another point too, is when they get these refrigerants from other countries and they smuggle it in, do you actually have what it says in the cylinder in that cylinder, right? So if it says that it's R22 or 410A, is it actually, and which raises a huge safety issue, just like, these folks that think they're buying drugs that are unsafe to start with, but then they're laced with fentanyl or some other types of unsafe things that they don't even realize what they're getting. And, it's unsafe, right? So it says a California man was arrested and charged Monday with allegedly smuggling potent planet heating greenhouse gases from Mexico, making the first such prosecution in the U.S., according to a statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Southern District of California. Michael Hart, a 58-year-old man from San Diego, pleaded not guilty to smuggling of hydrofluorocarbons, which we call them HFCs, HFC refrigerants, commonly used in air conditioning or refrigeration. It says HFCs, so not HCFCs or just CFCs. So that is probably 410, I guess, unless he's using one of these, replacement refrigerants, sometimes referred to as drop-in refrigerants, and selling them for a profit in a federal court hearing Monday. According to the indictment, Hart allegedly purchased the HFCs in Mexico and smuggled them into the U.S. in the back of his truck, concealed under a tarp and tools. He is then alleged to have sold them for a profit on sites including Facebook Marketplace and OfferUp. I've never heard of that website, OfferUp. It is illegal to import certain refrigerants into the United States because of their documented and significantly greater contribution to climate change, Assistant Attorney General Todd Kim of the Justice Department's Environment and Natural Resources Division, that's a mouthful, man, said in a statement Monday. CNN is attempting to reach an attorney for HART. HFCs, which are also used in building insulation, fire extinguishing systems, and aerosols, are banned from import into the U.S. without permission from the EPA. These greenhouse gases are short-lived in the atmosphere, but powerful. Some are thousands of times more potent than carbon dioxide in the near term. The illegal smuggling of hydrofluorocarbons, a highly potent greenhouse gas, undermines international efforts to combat climate change, said David Ullman, the assistant administrator to the EPA's office, blah, blah, blah. Anyone who seeks to profit from illegal actions that worsen climate change must be held accountable. So this goes on to talk about, what it says for the past 2 decades, the use of HFCs. So it goes through all the different, so it goes through R22 here and some of the, different things that have changed. But ultimately, it says Hart has pleaded not guilty to 13 charges, including conspiracy, importation contrary to law, and sale of merchandise imported contrary to law. The charges may carry a potential prison sentence ranging from 5 to 20 years. So next hearing date is March 25th. So that would have been, what year is this from? This might have been last year. No, that's this year. So they've maybe already had the hearing, and I just haven't seen an updated story on this yet. But I would love to hear his side. Why is he pleading not guilty if they caught him with it in his truck? I'd just like to hear why he thinks he's not guilty on that. Anyway, kind of crazy. There's all kinds of stories out there about people smuggling these or importing these products. And part of it is the safety level of some of these products, right? We're not talking about, oh, well, you saved $1 because you bought something online and it didn't, go through the same hoops. So, we have a global market, so we're going to buy things and have it imported in or smuggled into our country. But what a lot of folks don't realize is the safety aspect of some of this stuff, right? If you do, say, buy a tank of refrigerant and it ends up having propane in it, for example, like an A3 gas, and you don't know it, that's a problem, right? That's a huge problem for the homeowner too, right? The person that lives in that home, but it's also a huge safety issue for the person handling those products. So now we've gone over the cylinders and the safety aspects of that, but now we're talking about the refrigerant itself. They're smuggling or importing these products into our country, and there's a problem with the, how safe these products are. So let me go back to another story here. This one is from achrnews.com. It says R22 refrigerant smuggler nabbed in Florida. So this is, the last guy was in California, and this guy is in Florida. EPA estimates that the illegally imported R22 from China was worth $1.5 million. So we're not talking about, a little bit of refrigerant here. In July, so this, what year is this story? Let me log into my account here. Bear with me. I'm going to log into this account so we can see the story. I think ACHR News will let you read 2 stories a day or every couple days, and then you got to get an account with them. But they're always try to support them anyway. So you should too if you especially if you're in this trade. R22 refrigerant smuggler nabbed in Florida, $1.5 million. In July, 69-year-old Jorge Murillo pled guilty in federal district court in Miami. Hold on. Pop-ups. In Miami to conspiring to violate the Clean Air Act by importing 300,000 kilograms of illegal R22. So how many, let's see, 300,000 kilograms. Kilograms is how many pounds? Is that right? This is saying it's 661,000 pounds. So 1 kilogram is about 2.2 pounds. So double. So that means this, they're saying, so 661,000 pounds. All right. And then, so if we're going to do, let me find my calculator here. I mean, this is just wild, man. This is a pile of refrigerant. 661,000 divided by, let's just say these were 30-pound jugs. So that's 22,000 jugs, just over, of refrigerant. 22,000 jugs of refrigerant. And let's see. So 22,000 jugs of refrigerant. Let's see. 22,000 jugs of refrigerant. And let's just say there are 30 jugs on a pallet. So that's like 700 pallets of this stuff. I mean, that's a pot. So he must have been on a ship. There's no, I mean, could you put 700 pallets on a plane? 700 pallets of refrigerant? I don't know. I mean, I don't even think like a large, huge bomber plane, right, would carry 700 pallets of this stuff, right? I don't know. So he must have been, this had to have been on a ship, I feel like. Let's see, where did my story go? Bear with me. Got all kinds of pop-ups popping up again. Did I lose my spot? Okay, here we go. So they said it's worth over $1.5 million into the United States from China. R22 is widely used refrigerant for residential heat pump and air conditioning systems. This was back in 2022, but this wasn't that long ago. I feel like in my area, R22 has already finally become a thing of the past. Do we still have customers with R22 systems? Yes, but there were very few. I mean, we had gotten to where they were, less than 20% for sure. Maybe less than 10 or 5%. I mean, we're talking, we would go days and days and days of fixing air conditioners and heat pumps and not lay a hand on an R22 system. So they're out there, but I think it's crazy that these people are still importing this much R22 into our country and someone's buying it. Someone thinks that they need it. But I guess if you've got like a really old, especially like a commercial system that holds, 200 pounds of refrigerant, for example, maybe that's the type of customers they were, illegally selling to. The CAA regulates air pollutants, including ozone-depleting substances such as R22. The CAA and its implemented regulations established a schedule to phase out the production and importation of ozone-depleting substances, with a complete ban starting in 2030. So are they saying at the year 2030 that, let's see, phase out the production? I mean, this is saying not until the year 2030, but pretty sure you're not supposed to be, I could be wrong, but I thought that they had already, I knew the equipment was gone, but I thought the production of the refrigerant itself was done as well. So that's interesting. To meet its obligations under an international treaty to reduce its consumption of ozone-depleting substances, the U.S. issued baseline consumption allowances for the production and importation of R22 to individuals and companies. To legally import R22, one must hold an unexpended consumption allowance. So yeah, I guess they're saying you are, if you have one of those allowances, maybe you are okay with still, bringing that stuff in. Hello to Will. Some of you have seen Will on our live show before. Steve says that's a lot of pallets. Yeah, you ain't kidding, man. It's a pile of pallets. There's a lot in the commercial industrial side. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Let's see. According to court records and a factual statement filed in court, Murillo smuggled large quantities of R22. I don't think large is the right word if it's 700 pallets into the United States to sell on the black market. Murillo and his co-defendant would negotiate with a Chinese manufacturer for the purchase of large quantities of R22 and then import them into South Florida ports. At no point did Murillo or his companies or associates hold unexpended consumption allowances that would have allowed the legal importation of R22. Between June and August of 2007, Murillo conspired to and otherwise smuggled approximately 309,000 kilograms of HCFC and market value of $1.5 million into the U.S. Murillo resided outside of the United States from the time of his indictment in 2012 until his arrest in Miami in May of 2022. So, I'm not going to read all this. You guys are probably bored enough, but I just think, again, yet another story of somebody smuggling this stuff in. And again, I go back to, how do they really know? I mean, even how did Murillo know that he was buying tanks of the good stuff, right? Unless you've got a lab that you can test the stuff to make sure that you're getting the right stuff. Sorry, something's flying by my head in here. How do you know what you're buying is legit, that it is safe to work with, if nothing else, that it's not flammable? That's something we talked about the last time we all had a show like this, where with a lot of these DIY products out there and a lot of the different products that you can, purchase online, mini splits and things like that, do you want a handyman or even a homeowner for that matter installing products that are flammable, right? That's the big thing with these new A2L refrigerants that are mildly flammable. But, then you go on top of that and you start talking about importing these products in. They could be, highly flammable. It could be an A3 gas in there and somebody could get really, get hurt at the end of the day. Kind of scary if you think about it, especially if you're the guy coming behind them and you had no idea that it was, even smuggled refrigerant inside that system, Let's see. I've got a couple more stories I'll show you guys, but this is a little different from what we normally do. Let me know what you think. This is kind of our live show where I kind of get on my soapbox on certain things. I might start calling our Saturday shows the soapbox show or the rant show, when I get on here and rant about certain things. Here's what I'll rant about with this is, if you are going to save a couple bucks here and you're going to import something into the country, at least know what you're buying. If you're buying one of these recovery cylinders and you are not buying something that's up to snuff, it doesn't have the proper valves or the proper protection on the collar, right? Or you're buying this refrigerant that Lord knows what you're actually buying. Lord knows what's actually in that cylinder. I've seen these tests where they try to light these new refrigerants on fire, A2L refrigerants, and how flammable they are, but more importantly, how unflammable they are, how they don't stay lit after you get it to ignite finally under low pressure, perfect conditions. And then you go swinging that, thing around or whatever. If you were even to get an A3 gas to light, even with a torch, you go swinging around that, it will stay lit, right? And so if you're using refrigerants that are not supposed to be flammable at all, I mean, I had a guy that used to work for me. He'd smoke a cigarette while he was outside brazing copper lines through. And, we can go back. We could probably argue all day long on whether that was a good idea or not, but definitely not a good idea if you don't actually know what's in that tank. If you don't actually know what was in that product that you had smuggled, that you bought smuggled into our country, and now you're going to try to, use it in someone's heating and air system, don't smoke because you don't know what you're actually working with here. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to go back to, I'm trying to figure out which one is I think this is going to be our most recent story here, but I'm trying to make sure that it's not the same guy that they're talking about that we just talked about a moment ago, because this is a recent article. Yes, it is. Okay. But they go into more details of smuggling in general and stuff, but I'm gonna lay off of that article for now. Let's see. I think that some of these stories focus more on the instead of the fact that these products are actually could be unsafe, and they focus more on the laws themselves and maybe the problem with some of these laws and whether or not they can even be enforced in some cases, How much R22 was this story here? Give me just a second. I'm just trying to make sure that, because I think I'm going to hit you guys with one more story here, and then I'll let you get back to your Saturday. Yeah, so this is talking about the same fellow. Two of these articles are talking about the same guy. So, all right, let me show you guys this story. I think this is an interesting one. Present. Again, from the coolingpost.com website, which I think is based in the UK. And that's why I like using them, because I'll be completely honest with you. Those of you that think that we have freedom of speech here in this country, there is a lot of censorship. There's censorship on this platform right here. I could be shut down tomorrow if I say the wrong thing, right? I've heard of it happening. So I do like sometimes going to some of these sources that are outside looking in to North America and things. I would even argue that Canada is worse than America. Canada's worse than the US on that they can be censored. They don't have the same amendments, in their constitution like we do, specifically on freedom of speech. Now, I'm not going to get into politics and all of that, because I'm not really an expert, right? But I do know that that's more of a thing up there. Anyway, that's why I like these websites that sometimes are on the outside looking in. And this one says the U.S. R22 smuggler fined 250 grand. A man who smuggled 2,300 cylinders of R22 has been fined 250 grand. Well, I mean, if we're talking about 2,300 cylinders, that's nowhere near the amount of cylinders that we were talking about a moment ago. I think we were talking, let's see, what did we say? 70 pallets or something like that. Let me do the math on this one. 2,300 divided by, let's say if we put 30 cylinders on each pallet. So we're only talking 76 pallets here in comparison. And so, maybe that's why the fine is so small. Because that's why I was asking. This doesn't seem like a very high fine compared to some of the other stories that we've read, Little Me says, honestly, it seems like the HVAC system over season are better over there, maybe I should consider implementing one over their systems with their refrigerate. Where are you located, little me? Just out of curiosity. Let's see. Says a man smuggled 2,300 cylinders of ozone depleting R22 in the U.S. has been fined 250 grand. Faz Abdali, I'm probably saying that incorrectly, who's 56, pleaded guilty in October 2021. So this was a few years ago, to improper importation of a Class 2 substance, a felony under USA's Federal Clean Air Act. He was also sentenced to 3 years probation. His co-conspirator, Severo Zamora, pleaded guilty in 2022 to being an accessory after the fact and was sentenced to 6 months probation. So he was an accessory after the fact. Abdali and Zamora were charged in February of 2021 with illegally importing approximately 2,300 cylinders of R22 in May of 2017. The two were said to have submitted falsified and fraudulent documents to the Customs and Border Patrol indicating that the cylinders contained R32, not R22. R32 does not claim have the C in there. It's an HFC with a low GWP, and so maybe that's why it was okay. They thought it was okay, but they later found out that they were not R32, that they were R22. According to plea papers, Abdali admitted smuggling R22 into the U.S. without an authorized permit. The U.S. EPA has, since 2020, banned the production and importation of R22. Abdali admitted he arranged for Chinese R22 to be delivered to the port of Long Beach, California, and then transported via rail to Dallas-Fort Worth area, disguised as R32 to avoid seizure by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Zamora then repackaged and sold the R22 to HVAC companies in the U.S. So I wonder how they got caught. I wonder if, when he repackaged it and sold it, if that's how they caught it, that they came out and said, hey, this is not R32, this is R22. And sorry for the grammar, no problem. No problem. And you're in Texas. Okay, I was just making sure that you were in the US. Going back to your original statement, I don't know if they're better over there, but I will say that some of the HVAC systems that are sold overseas, and especially Europe, they sometimes have technologies before we do. Now, good or bad, right? You could argue, well, Josh, that's not a good thing. We sometimes, as a country, will have a front row seat and let them try things out. There are some countries that are trying out these air to water heat pumps with A3 refrigerants in there, and we're kind of sitting back and waiting, right? This whole thing with these new A2L refrigerants that are now being introduced into our country, that are now coming out as we phase out these 410A systems. This is, a big deal to some people. They get all up in arms, and they don't understand that we're late to the party on this, that we're one of the last, first world countries, if not the last first world country to adopt these A2L refrigerants, these low GWP that are better for the environment refrigerants. So, a lot of guys will say, well, they're just picking on our industry. Well, they're really not. They're picking on lots of products. They're picking on aerosol products and fire extinguishers and, those products that they use to put spray foam insulation in walls and the off-gassing and all that stuff. And so, they're looking at an array of products, an array of different types of products. And so it's not always just the HVAC guys that are affected by these things. And so I will say this, as we've got some pretty good numbers today. We're up to almost 100 people in here at one time. We're streaming to Instagram for the first time ever live. And if you know a good heating and air company or plumber or electrician across our country, or if you're outside of our country, you're welcome to participate. But if you know a good company, feel free to share them in the chat. Share who they are and where they're located. So that way there's so many bad ones out there. Let's show some love to some of the good ones. And you never know, somebody might see your comment and, use that company, and you were able to show them love in more ways than one. So feel free to share them in the chat. But as I, just kind of land the plane here on thoughts, just understand that they're not just picking on our industry, that we're watching other countries try different things. And, there's nothing to be upset about here. That we are last to the party. We gave other countries a chance to try these products out, to try A2L refrigerants out, and to see what the actual harm is. And now we're just now coming into the story here. Alex says Griffin Heating and Air is best in our region. What region are you in, Alex? I'm just out of curiosity. My company was called Griffin Air, so that's why I'm curious. I know there's a Griffin something down in North Carolina. And then there's a couple other play on, not Griffin, but there's like a Griffith. In fact, we've gotten their parts. When I had my company, we would get their parts from time to time. But anyway, so I think the point here being, the topic, if you will, for our show has been, hey, we're seeing products are imported into our country, and we're finding out that some of these products are just simply not safe, that they're not meeting codes, and they're not jumping through the hoops that a lot of these, good companies are having to jump through in the name of safety. And so as we do go towards an industry of technology where things are more flammable and more serious, not fearful, but more serious than ever, now we've got to realize that these products, we need to make sure that we know what we're buying here and that they do jump through these hoops, right? It's just like buying vitamins online when you don't know what you're buying, right? How unsafe that can be. And I would argue that this sort of stuff is maybe not just as unsafe, but pretty serious here, pretty unsafe. And we need to be careful about what we're, if nothing else, buying online or smuggling into our countries. So that said, if you don't already subscribe to our channel, I would highly, highly advise you to. We're going to be talking this next year more than any other year. I think we're going to see more changes to our industry in this country than any other year that I've been doing this, because we just saw SEER 2 equipment get released last year. We're now going to see A2L refrigerant systems hit our market. And not only is all that kind of crazy, all hitting sort of at once within a 2-year time span, but I also am aware of products that they've been waiting on the new refrigerants to come out to even release those products, those technologies, and so on, because the manufacturers knew, hey, this change is coming. Why would I launch this product if I've got to, freaking switch it up anyway? So over the next year or two, I think that, the industry in itself is going to be crazy, but because of that, our channel is going to be crazier than ever. We're going to have a whole plethora of changes that I'm going to try to help stay on top of. And I would, welcome you to subscribe to our channel. Is that a sales tactic? Probably. But I do think that as these things keep coming out, that we're going to try to do, more and more videos, keeping folks aware of, oh, here's something new, and so on. All that said, we will be back Tuesday night for our live show with the most controversial guest I've ever had. I don't know if he would call himself that, but I can tell you in our industry, he is a disruptor. Whether he wants to be or not, he is a disruptor, and he is, really doing things that is controversial in a lot of people's eyes, one way or the other. So we're going to have Dave on our show on Tuesday night. And, we're going to get this long and skinny. We're going to talk behind the scenes a little bit with him. And he's going to maybe even share things that he's never shared on his own channel because he never really had the way to. He never really had the platform, a live show where we could just talk about those things. So that's coming. I've also got some folks from the number one manufacturer in the world coming up as guests on our live show. And I've also got a guy that I think he's got some of the best content being put out, not just on YouTube, but on multiple platforms coming up as a guest on our show. So all that said, I do appreciate your support. We hit 100,000 subscribers a few weeks ago. We're going to maybe do something fun very soon as a celebration for that. And this has been a lot of fun, guys. I feel like sometimes I'm just getting started, and we're having a good time so far. So I also just got word, just while I'm promoting things, I just got word that we're going to do some things in Washington, D.C. Soon, over the next 12 months. I'm going to go to D.C. and, maybe do some things that have never been done when it comes to heating and air content. Anyway, I don't want to give away too much as far as that goes, but I think that's going to be a good time. So all that said, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you are a pro, this is the last thing I'll say. If you are a professional, electrician, plumber, heating and air guy, whatever, I've got 2 spots open in one of my growth groups. And, you might say, well, what's a growth group? I'm not a guru. I'm not a sales coach, none of that crap. I'm not a guy that was never in the heating and air industry and is now acting like I know everything about it. I see these guys on my feed pop up and they'll say, join my program. And I'm like, you've never even turned a wrench. You've never even fixed an air conditioner. And now you supposedly know so much about our industry, but I digress. Bottom line is my growth groups, you're going to rub elbows with other guys fighting the same fight you are. I've got 2 spots open right now. Go to our website, newhvacguide.com. And I've only got 2 spots right now, and sign up. If you scroll to the bottom of our website, you can sign up there. And I'm going to be I've got a couple guys that are getting a lot out of it. And they did a promo recordings talking about what they've gotten out of being in our growth groups. And we're going to be doing a video showing that soon as well. So all that said, let's see. Main event says biggest small HVAC business advice, join our growth group. That's my biggest advice that I mean, for real. It's a budget friendly. It's not a huge thing where you're paying thousands of dollars to get access to some guy that never could succeed at a business on his own. So he went and started this other thing where he coaches actual business owners like you and guys that are actually kicking butt. And, they try to, I think they leech off of our industry is what I think. They tell these guys, oh, I'm going to make you a business guru, join my program. And, they've never actually even built a business in our industry. So, take that with what you will, but I'm not going to take advice from somebody that doesn't have what I want. If you've never done what I want to do, I'm not going to take advice from you. I'm sorry. I'm just not trying to be a jerk, but I'm not going to take advice to become rich from a guy that is broke. Right. That now I'm starting to sound like some of those motivational speakers. I'm not the magic. In our growth groups, there are other guys that are way more successful than me in our groups. And that's kind of the magic, right? Getting guys together that are fighting the same fight and they get to share war stories, man, get to share what they're going through and so on. So I've got 2 spots available right now that they'll fill up, I'm sure. And, you're welcome to go to our website, fill out that form, and we'll get you in there if you want. Lupe says, we will get the new licenses for the next thing. So right now, I'm glad you asked. Right now, the EPA here in the US is not requiring any additional licenses to purchase or handle these refrigerants. Now, there are organizations that have come out with certifications, but they hold no weight. Meaning, just because you get that certification just because you don't have that certification does not mean you can't buy and handle these A2L refrigerants. So if you have a CFC 608 EPA license, the traditional, universal or whatever, core 1, core 2, whichever one you have. If you were able to buy 410A and R22, you're going to be able to buy this stuff. Now that could change. They could come out tomorrow and say, we've got this new license or certification that you have to, you got to take this class and pass this test. But right now, they're not requiring that. So just be aware of that. In fact, there are some states that have been installing these units. I know Florida's been installing them for a while now. So, these products are out. Ryan says, have Walter on. I like Walter. He's got that. One of my favorite videos is that one where he was going to just walk away when the guy wouldn't pay him. But yeah, that's a good idea. I'll reach out to him as well. Ryan almost single-handedly keeps my show going. So I do appreciate you, Ryan. That said, I'm going to wrap up with this. Be here Tuesday night. Be here Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to have the most controversial guest I've ever had. We're going to have some fun with him. We're going to ask him some tough questions, and we're going to, go from there. Lemon wants to know, or Lyman, I'm going to say Lemon, wants to know how much do HVAC workers make? I think it just depends, man. I know some guys that just get by, and I know some guys that, make more money than some college-educated people. Depends on where you are too. There are some states where, the cost of living's higher, so you make more money. So, it just kind of depends. They are located in Virginia and love them. Interesting, Alex. I wonder if you're talking about my company. Anyway, that said, yep, DIY HVAC guy, Dave, will be here on Tuesday night. We're going to have some fun with him. Alex says, heard you just merged with different respective HVAC contractor. Yep. So Griffin Air was bought. Sarah wants to know that Jesus loves me, and I agree. Happy Easter to all you folks. And yeah, I appreciate your time, your support. And again, be here Tuesday night. Join my growth group if you're a business owner. And that's all I got for today, guys. Appreciate your time. Have a great Saturday. Happy Easter. We'll see you Tuesday.